all of it. Actually,
I'm not
for the most
backtracking at
part,
all.
the only thing that I'm backtracking on is 0-3 Notre Dame. But
Yeah. All right, we are live. What's up, YouTube?
hi, YouTube.
All right.
Nice
Yeah,
to see you.
I'm good. I need to figure out what I'm following at some point, but I'm sure Twitter will help
Same.
eventually. So,
Yeah, I was just looking through my bookmarks.
yeah. Oh, actually, I think I found it.
Oh no,
Yeah.
are you looking at what I'm looking at?
What are you looking at? Not to spoil it for
The
YouTube.
1949 Ford 8N tractor. That's
No.
just
What?
just dropped on auction.
Get
It's
out of
powered by
here,
a Ford
Josh.
302.
Oh my gosh. No, that is
Oh, that
not.
looks pretty.
That is
That's
not.
so pretty
even,
though.
Not even remotely what Aaron was looking at, I'm sure.
You guys, if you wanted access to my Twitter feed, it is old auctions, it's Dallas Stars, it's the Steelers, and then bet I'm getting a lot of sports. And
That's
then
good, I guess.
and then theology Twitter. Yeah. It's a mixture of sports, old cars, and theology, which is just it's a fun mix.
Right. Very fun. All right, yeah, I'm good. We can get started so we get out of here on time. For Josh.
Oh yeah, I should start recording.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys
for that,
appreciate it.
too. That would have been awkward. Check. All
Yeah.
right, there we go.
I'm doing this.
All right.
I am recording.
I am also
We are
recording.
good.
Sweet.
Ready to go.
Welcome to the Fifth and Goal podcast. My name is Aaron. I am joined once again by my good friends Josh and Jonny. We are back with another episode. It is episode 80, guys. That's exciting. Josh, what's up, man? How was your week?
My week has been great, guys. This is going to mean very little to people, but I got really excited today at about 1 o'clock. I got a really cool notification on my campus group chats.
Okay.
I am friends with a few of the people over at the bookstore, and some donor had just dropped off a bunch of brand new books. And so I know you guys, have no desire to ever enter school again, but I did
Correct.
get like 4 free books, and they're in great condition.
Oh,
and they're
nice.
Free. And I'm just happy because I didn't have to pay for any of these books. Am I going to read them? No, but
They'll look
I
great
am
on
gonna
your
look-
bookshelf, Josh.
they're so look
So
how
good.
clean they are, and they're
And
so great.
you can
on the
almost
book.
guarantee
point
that
of
there's
books
no
is not to
Dwayne The
read.
Rock Johnson memes in them because Johnny
You
and
are
I have
right.
not got to them yet.
There are times
Any, though?
True.
No, there are times I'm looking through my books, and every now and then I just I go, wait a second, am I sure that I've cleared this book stack of Dwayne The Rock Johnson memes? Or no,
For
or just random
reference,
memes?
everyone who is not aware, while we were in college, there was a bit of a meme battle going
Yes.
on, and we hid, I don't know, Aaron, how
Hundreds.
many?
Hundreds.
Hundreds
There was
of
one.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson memes.
Yes.
We've talked about
All
this.
throughout
I think we
Josh's
have talked about this.
dorm
Yes.
room.
You know, in the sense of
Okay.
but I don't remember. We've talked about you guys hid one in my. I'm just checking books now just in case.
Oh yeah,
Um,
your hand sanitizer. That was me.
My hand sanitizer, yeah. It's so I don't know if I ever was actually able to see the meme.
No, because it got
by the
stuck and
time I
it
used
started
it so
slowly
long,
disintegrating.
It disintegrated the paper.
But you knew what it was.
I knew what it was.
Right.
And I knew that I had been got. So, now I just kind of want to look. I gotta look. Nope. Yeah, you guys keep going. I'm gonna just check my books again. Just
Yeah, that
because.
sounds good. Johnny, how was your
But
week?
I have 4 books that I know do not have memes in them.
That's good.
It was a good week. Plenty of tennis. My sports teams really just felt it yesterday. Enjoyed that. Enjoyed all of my team showings yesterday, but that's okay. That's fine. We had a great time getting and going to cover Battle of the Victory Bell down in
Yes.
Cincinnati at now Paycor Stadium, old Paul Brown Stadium. So,
Which is
me
the
and Aaron
reason
got
the
to go
Bengals are
cover that
0-2, by
game.
the way.
Yeah, it's a curse.
Yeah.
But we had a wonderful time doing that. Check our social media. There's going to be an article / video coming shortly as well. We had a blast getting to do that. Really a quality game. Pleasantly surprised in that area. So very happy with the atmosphere, and getting to cover a college football rivalry game is just another level another level than a early season matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of I don't know if we want to call it this, but the second leg, I guess, if you will, of our college football tour. It's something that's kind of just blossomed in front of us. It's been really cool. So again, like I said last week, and I think I saved it towards the end. So let me just start by saying this episode, thank you for the support, because truly without you guys and your support, that would not have been possible. So yeah, it was awesome. We got to be, on the field and the press box. So all of it was sweet. So thank you guys for that support. And again, yeah, go check our social media and all that stuff. It was awesome. Great game. Cincinnati did win their 16th straight victory bell, but it's the oldest non-conference rivalry game in college football. So that was awesome. So yeah, as a result, my week was really good too. Watched that game, and Josh, what'd you find? Did you find a meme?
I don't know. I don't. You guys are gonna have to tell me. Okay, so I pulled a book that I haven't really used since college.
Yeah.
And it's got 2 Cat in the Hat things on it. Number 1 and number 2. I have no clue.
Oh,
That's not.
it's not
Those
our
aren't-
work.
those
It
aren't-
might be
that's not what
somebody
you guys
else's.
Did someone else
Maybe.
break into my book stack?
Probably.
That's the most likely scenario.
This
I mean,
is-
look, the 2 options were either 1, do homework, or 2, prank Josh. So when given those 2 choices, it's an easy decision.
I take that choice too. I prank myself. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, glad to hear everyone's weeks went well. Josh, continued success in your endeavor to find memes. The next meme you might find would be the ones that are made about ourselves and some of our horrible predictions. Now, we've had some good predictions too, but that's what we're going to do today. There's plenty of
No one cares
action
about our
in
good
college.
predictions.
Well, that's true. You're right. Those don't get clicks. Well, there was plenty to do in college football last week. Lots happening in the NFL now that we're 2 weeks into the NFL season. The picture is starting to take shape. There's some interesting 0-2 teams, and I'll just maybe that's how we'll start. Let's look at some of the 0-2 teams that were perhaps surprises so far. Now, again, it's a long season. 0-2 does not ruin your season, but statistically speaking, it is a tough hill to climb, especially as you get deeper and deeper into the 0 and whatever number insert there hole. So the 0-2 teams that are perhaps surprises: the Cincinnati Bengals, the Las Vegas Raiders, and I'll go ahead and throw the Tennessee Titans in there. I know they're 0-1, and as we're recording, they're playing the Bills on Monday Night Football, but let's be honest, if the Bills show up like they did in Week 1, the Titans will be 0-2. So, guys, thoughts on that? The Colts are also 0-1 after just getting crushed by the Jacksonville Jaguars. And again, that's a unanimous division winner that we had, the Colts winning that division. So, guys, thoughts on what we've seen from the NFL and maybe specifically those 0-2 teams? Is there any huge surprise from those teams? Is there any of those teams that you're the most worried about? Jonny, maybe starting with you, because your own Cincinnati Bengals are one of those teams.
Yeah, I think I'll talk about the Bengals actually a little later, because while I am worried about the Bengals, the team I'm most worried about is actually the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
They have looked atrocious to start the season. They look like they have nothing on offense except Michael Pittman Jr. and Jonathan Taylor. And while those are 2 fantastic options, clearly they're probably top 10. I mean, Jonathan Taylor might be the best running back in the entire league. Michael Pittman's probably a top 10 receiver. He's in that range for sure. He wasn't able to play against Jacksonville, and the passing attack virtually did not exist without him. So, you make that trade from Atlanta to get Matt Ryan over there. You're expecting big things. They don't have a second option behind Michael Pittman in the passing game. It's a huge issue. Shaq Leonard also did not play in that game, so it's not like the Colts were whole, but you don't lose a game to Jacksonville and get shut out. Shut out, correct, guys?
Yes. Yeah, I believe 34-0 was the final score. I mean, just
that's
really
unacceptable.
Bad. Yeah.
And as good as Shaq Leonard is, as good as Michael Pittman Jr. is, you're not winning that game, even if they play, because they're not going to make up a over 30-point difference in the game. I'm extremely worried about them. You know what? The Texans, I know it's early, and bad teams usually play much better than expected early in the season because the season's not lost yet. So you're still playing really hard. You don't know what you don't know. So I think, the Texans and Jaguars are playing better. I also will say that they're going to be better than last year. They were both awful. I think the Titans have taken a step back, but it was pretty unanimous between the 3 of us. And really league wide, and most analysts picking the Colts to win that division, they have a massive cause for concern on that team right now. The defense isn't good enough either. We're not talking about that, but the offense is really where I am severely worried about. Matt Ryan, he's older. Maybe he's lost more than we expected. He's not a mobile quarterback. And outside of Michael Pittman, he doesn't have a lot of throwing options. So there's a big cause for concern. And I know they always lose at Jacksonville, but I'm concerned about the Colts.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the team that I'm concerned about, and it's partially because this was kind of my hot take team, is the Raiders. They blew just a ginormous lead to the Cardinals. And again, 0-2 is not going to ruin your year. But in a division that, Josh, I'll give you credit. You picked the Chiefs to win that division. The Chiefs have looked really good the first 2 weeks, and the Raiders have looked anything but. So, yes, 0-2 is not going to kill you, but the fact that the Chiefs look like they've hit their stride already. And yes, is this a bit of a overreaction early? Maybe, but I think, the Chiefs, I've been very impressed, especially that week 1 game. So I'm worried about the Raiders. And Johnny, you kind of pointed out some glaring weaknesses, and I thought the offense could potentially overcome those weaknesses. And Devontae Adams looked good in week 1, was virtually non-existent in week 2. So that's kind of something else to watch. What will the consistency level be like for that Las Vegas Raiders team? Again, in a very, very good division, probably the best in the NFL. I mean, the Chargers have shown some flashes as well. Just a tough state of affairs there potentially in Las Vegas. Josh, is there anything that's kind of stuck out to you through 2 weeks? Even kind of the ups and downs of the Steelers too. You could throw them in there. They're 1-1, but as you kind of talked about, fans are already calling for Kenny Pickett. So what are your thoughts on all of that?
I was going to say Trubisky. Trubisky's going to take him 500 straight. If you want to actually win games, you put Pickman in. But no. So I'm also going to wait for that situation to develop a little bit.
Sure.
They lost a lot, and I don't think I'm going to hold off on that because I'm actually going to talk about some of the teams that have surprised me in a positive way.
All right, nice.
Even though I picked them to win the division, we were like, well, someone's got to win, and I did pick the Cowboys to take the NFC East. And listen, 2 games in, I'm not saying, but we all assumed that once Prescott was out for a few weeks, that would be kind of the nail in the coffin for their, at the very least, their division clinching hopes. However, granted, no, you're going to talk about the Bengals, and it looks like their O-line really hasn't done anything. They grabbed a bunch of guys who forgot that they were supposed to be an O-line. So I don't want to over assume what's happening there. However, they did get 6 sacks on him. And I think that is a testament to, at the very least, the Cowboys' ability. Let's see, Micah Parsons and the rest of that defensive team able to pretty much just assert their will over whatever Joe Burrow was trying to do. Also, I think what people are pleasantly surprised about down here, at the very least, is Cooper Rush's decent start. 235, 1 touchdown. That's not fantastic, but it got them a win. And so there is still a lot of season left. But I think so far there's not a sigh of relief, but we might be able to work with this sort of attitude. And so we will see. I just want to point out just real quick, and we were not going to be surprised at this at all, but I do want to say that if Chubb had not run it in for a touchdown, they would have actually won.
I think he's low on the ladder of blame, though, personally, in that game.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Being true.
Despite that being true, that's also a mentality he's not at fault for trying to run up the score. That's what you're supposed to do as an offensive player. Yeah. And it's not his fault for converting and actually getting the touchdown.
Also, if I remember right, the first down marker and the end zone are the first down markers at the 2 or 3 yard line. It's also not like there was
it's hard to make a precision
to just dive to the ground right there. And
Right.
remember,
I'm gonna get
guys,
out of bounds at the
players don't
half-yard
see
line.
the yellow line on the field. That's not there.
No, that's a conspiracy.
So,
What else are their visors for?
True. That's true. Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily saying the Jets are good. They did well, but I am
Joe
just saying
Flacco's elite.
Joe Flacco's elite.
Guys, who's
Well,
third in the NFL in passing yards right now?
Well, let's
Jets
talk.
can't be good. That's
Okay.
what none of us predicted. We need at least one of our predictions to come
But
true.
Garrett
Not none
Wilson
of them.
was fantastic.
He was.
And it's a
Absolutely,
homecoming.
he was.
Getting to play in Cleveland week 2 probably felt good. The Browns secondary in the first 2 weeks of the season's non-existent, but
Whoa.
he played fantastic and single-handedly almost brought that team back in the game. So well done to Garrett Wilson. Always love seeing a Buckeye do that well, but he's probably been the best rookie wide receiver so far. It's 2 weeks into the season.
Yeah.
We're very early, but he looked fantastic. Going on the Bengals, just because they are my team, so I feel like I need to speak on it at least briefly. Yeah, am I worried about the offensive line? Yes, absolutely. I think there's a mixture here on the offensive line with Joe Burrow getting the appendectomy, therefore being unable to play in the preseason. And he's stated multiple times he would have liked to play in the preseason. So it wasn't like just he decided not to, like many quarterbacks and players just decided not to. He just wasn't ready for that. So they missed those key reps where an offensive line, you can have a great individual offensive lineman, but you need to be able to communicate and mesh together. That's where the preseason in the past really has been for. They have not been able to do that either as a unit themselves and with Joe. So that is a big issue. If that's the only issue, you would like to /assume that gets better over time. Joe also just needs to have better pocket presence and get rid of the ball. There are times where he's not living to fight another down and is taking a sack when a throwaway is available. So while overall I don't think most of the hits he takes are on him, there are plenty of times where he has the opportunity to get rid of the ball, kill the play. What is Tom Brady so good at? He's in the pocket, but he throws it at a run his feet. So he's fine. Tom is brilliant at that and not taking big shots. And that's something Joe really does need to work on still. Like, let's not just shift the blame completely to the O-line. He needs to get the ball out of his hands at times, especially when you have a monster like Micah Parsons coming after you. But I place most of the blame on the coaching staff. They look so unprepared, especially in the first half of both games. The Steelers game as well. They look completely unprepared, offense and defense, where the defense gets gashed immediately out of the gates. Do they recover? Yeah. But you can't spot teams 10, 17-point leads in the NFL. It's not college. That's too hard to consistently come back from. No team is built from that. And I know the Bengals did it a lot at the end of last year and in the postseason, but that's not sustainable football to keep winning that way. That it just won't work. And that's on Zach Taylor and the coaching staff. The play calling is just as bad as last year. And it's a reminder that this team most likely overcame Zach Taylor rather than made it through the playoffs to the Super Bowl because of him. He's a great leader. He has a good team culture. He's a good CEO. I think he's a bad play caller. I think he's a bad with schematics because they don't adjust. They don't adjust not only in game, but even game to game, season to season. They're still running the same stuff. I believe the stat is every time Joe Burrow is under center, they run the ball 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Defenses know that. You have to mix it up. You have to. And you have to put tight ends and running backs to chip. They put Micah Parsons one-on-one many times yesterday. So that's my rant on the Bengals. I believe most of it is fixable over time, except for the coaching issues, because that has remained constant over time as well.
Yeah, I know there's no such thing technically as the law of averages, but in football there is. Because typically, and I think this kind of just goes on top of everything you said, Johnny, typically when a team wins a lot of close games in a season, just kind of by rule or by statistically or whatever you want to say, they don't win as many the following season. Think about all of the games the Bengals won on game-winning field goals. And I know the NFL is constantly playing close games, but more often than not last season, and especially in the playoffs, the Bengals were on the right side of those. It's just natural. And again, I know there's technically no such thing as the law of averages, but it just works this way. It's the same thing. It's actually the same thing if you look statistically at turnover margin. Teams that have a really good turnover margin one year usually see that number plummet the following season. And vice versa. Teams that have a horrendous turnover margin are often much improved. So, look, I think you're right, Johnny. All the things you said are correct. I think Cincinnati's going to have to overcome some of those shortcomings even more than they did last year. And we'll see if they can do that. Off to a tough start, 0-2, game-winning field goals against them in each of the first 2 weeks. I'll kind of round out this discussion by talking about my team, I guess, since we've kind of all mentioned our teams. I was really, really impressed with Detroit week 2. That 22-0 first half is probably the best half of Lions football maybe I've ever seen. That was really impressive. I know the game got kind of close from there, but I'll take the win. And honestly, they played Philadelphia, who could be a really good team, like a 12-win team potentially. They played them to a 3-point game. And yes, I know I'm talking about moral victories, in which there are none technically. But 1-1 at this point, I'll take it. I think there's some encouraging signs. Aiden Hutchinson, obviously, as a Buckeye fan, I was not rooting for him in college, but I will say it is a very fun feeling getting to root for Aiden Hutchinson because he was a beast. 3 sacks in the first half for Hutchinson. That's a rookie record for the Lions. And expecting some big things from him. I think he just fits that town, the personality of the team with Dan Campbell just perfectly. So a lot of fun. I think if nothing else, this is going to be a fun team, an entertaining team. I hope they pick up some more wins in the process. But overall, I'm fairly encouraged by what I'm seeing from Detroit. So I'll take it. So yeah, I think I'm trying to think if I need to mention anything that I've gotten super wrong in the NFL, but I think it just is a little too early to tell for sure. Yeah. But again, I think I look at the 0-2 teams. Johnny, I'll even throw out the Denver Broncos, a rough start for I know they're 1-1, but kind of a tough start for Russell Wilson, and like that's not looking so good right now.
Ooh. Well, I feel like this is me again, and also 2 weeks in. It looks to me like Nathaniel Hackett's in over his head as the head coach. Has Russell been good? No, he hasn't been very good. But he looks lost on the sideline and looks unable to make split decisions in the moment of the flow of the game. He decided to kick a 64-yard field goal in Seattle when, you're paying Russell Wilson over $200 million. Like, it's 4th and 5. Go get it. Go get it. And you let 40 seconds run off. Like, that's what you do when, no offense, Aaron, you're the Lions and you're playing with house money. Right. The Jaguars, you're playing with house money. The Jets, the Browns, the franchises who usually really struggle, and you're like, man, I'm just happy to be in the game. Maybe we win this thing on a fluky field goal, and here we go. You have better players. I mean, Seattle got house this week with Trey Lance. And Trey, we hope you get better soon, buddy. Yeah. But like with a quarterback injury to the 49ers, the Seahawks got house this week, and probably an emotional letdown, but still, you need to, if you can't get 5 yards on 4th and 5, you don't deserve to win. 64-yard field goal is a fool's errand. His decision-making in general was just a little rough. The play calling at the goal line, 2 fumbles are a little fluky. In this game, though, like there were many moments unable to make a quick decision on whether to punt, whether to kick a field goal, whether to go for it. And, he was the OC in Green Bay. I mean, LaFleur's calling those plays. Yeah. So you just kind of start to be worried and wonder how much involvement he had on game day with what was going on. And if he is able to grow into that, because while Russell, again, hasn't been great, I think the players around him on offense have let him down as well. I think the biggest question mark for me is Nathaniel Hackett at head coach.
Yeah, I agree. I'll throw the Dolphins in there also as an interesting team. Yeah. They started 2-0. Thank you, Tyreek Hill, for my fantasy football victory today. Thank you very much. Thank you. Doing good on that front. All right, well, that's kind of the NFL discussion, I suppose. I guess that kind of takes us to college football. We mentioned it last week, but we literally had thousands of comments on our college football playoff predictions, and so I don't know if we need to. We can deep dive those a little bit. It's out there. Notre Dame escapes with a win against Cal. But guys, thoughts on what we're seeing, and especially in week 3.
They're ready to go.
Yeah,
They didn't lose to the SEC, Josh. You can't rank them yet.
yeah.
But
two quality
here's
losses.
What's funny. Two quality losses. So I had to go to one of the Notre Dame, basically their their like little sports,
like beat reporting
websites.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, exactly. Beat reporting, fan sites, all of that stuff. And it's just, to be fair, 6 sacks. That's good. That's a great afternoon of football. It's just the craziest sentence. Notre Dame's defensive line didn't play very well in the first 2 weeks. Cool. They were okay against Ohio State, but couldn't generate any sort of rush against Marshall. And I just love that sentence. But
By the way, Josh, did you see who Marshall lost to this week?
Oh no, tell me. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna do this in real time.
So while you do this, I'll walk you through it because there's a point to this. Marshall lost to Bowling Green. By the way, the catch of the year happened in that game. Bowling Green, the week previous, lost to Eastern Kentucky in 7 overtime. So as Austin pointed out to us on Twitter, Eastern Kentucky of the FCS clearly and definitively better than Notre Dame by the all-powerful transitive property.
Who? That's not great, guys. And listen, I know that it might hurt Ohio State's chances. Most likely not, but it always could. We never know.
No.
I hope they don't win another game this year. That would be hilarious.
There's a real chance this team could go 1-8, 1-9. They play an undefeated North Carolina team next week. If you look at the schedule, I don't think will that happen. I don't think so because I think Marcus Freeman will figure it out as he goes. But the opponents are such that 1-8 is actually possible, which is insane.
Oh goodness, they go to BYU.
Yeah,
they're gonna host Stanford.
Yep.
At Syracuse.
Yep. Syracuse.
They're hosting Clemson.
Great start. Yes.
They're at USC. And they're hosting Boston College, which is not a given at this point.
They should beat Boston College this year.
Oh yes, should.
But that's the only team on
that.
We talked about it last week. That's the only team on that schedule that you don't look at and say, "Oh yeah, that's a win." Everything else, oh my gosh.
Host Clemson, correct?
They do.
Yeah.
That'll be a rock fight. First one to 15 wins. Why 15? Field goals only.
Yeah.
Good old-fashioned football, the way Tress invented.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of old-fashioned football, Jonny, I feel like you need to confess to the people what you watched at like 2 a.m. on Saturday. I feel like or I guess at that point, 2 a.m. on Sunday. I feel like you need to come clean in front of the listeners.
Well, I was actually watching 2 things. I was watching a stream of Hawaii playing Duquesne, kick at midnight Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, jeez.
And because of weather delays, incredible weather delays, and these were not like, oh, there happens to be some lightning off, like barely within the 30-mile range. It appeared like the lightning was striking the stadium. You completely understood why they did this. Nevada and Iowa finished up early Sunday morning. So stayed up for that one. Wanted to see if the Hawkeyes could cover. They did, miraculously. My favorite thing was a photo of a guy. Security left. So anyone could just walk in and check in how the game was going. My favorite was a picture with a guy who clearly was just walking his dog and just looked very annoyed and half asleep because he had to take his dog out to pee, and just checking in at the game. Just him and his dog right there at the 50-yard line, just taking it in all its glory. I think Central Time, probably like 2 a.m.
Wow.
Seeing how the Hawkeyes and Wolfpack were getting along. But
I couldn't confirm because I was, in fact, asleep.
Yeah.
My goodness.
That Jonny, you're a true sicko for that, and that's one of the reasons why we love you. So
they're relying on me to watch the games, so
Yeah, I appreciate it. I was watching. What was I? Oh, I think I was finishing up Miami, Texas A&M. which Texas A&M did kind of salvage their season for the moment with that win over Miami. Yeah, Josh, I agree. Kind of.
For the
okay.
moment.
Yeah, they play
I mean, they're
Arkansas.
hosting Arkansas,
Yeah,
so
right next to you, Johnny.
never know.
Or Josh. Maybe we need to send. We'll see if we can get media credentials in that game. We'll just.
Oh yeah, I got a bunch of Aggie friends. I can just steal one of their rings and
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, or SMU and TCU, I believe, is this week, which is a very interesting rivalry.
That's right.
It's
And
even more
actually
interesting
pointing
because Sonny Dykes, former coach of SMU, is now at TCU. So that's
Iron Skillet, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's the
I might be going to that
101st
tailgate.
edition of that rivalry. So it's probably not one that's on your radar, but that is going to be truly one of the most underrated and interesting games on the schedule next week, or really on Saturday, I really should say. So keep an eye on that. As far as other college football goes, guys, Washington really took it to Michigan State. If we're just talking about things, this is kind of where I'll approach it from. I thought the Pac-12 North was going to be pretty bad, and it looked like originally that Oregon kind of set that trend by just getting throttled by Georgia. But since then, Oregon with a huge blowout victory over BYU. I was not expecting that. I thought Washington can win, but the manner in which they beat the Spartans and exposed what is yet again a terrible Michigan State defense. Guys, the Pac-12, I mean, even USC took care of business against Fresno State, a game that we had kind of highlighted as, okay, look out, USC, this could be trouble. USC handled business. I think the Pac-12 is actually far stronger than it appeared week one, because week one was a bad week for the Pac-12. It's not looking so bad right now, which I'm encouraged by, because good for you, Pac-12. I'm glad to see you're not horrible.
Listen, I'm glad at least three of my finals picks are still alive.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, I'm
College
happy to be
football's-
wrong, but
College football's better when the talent and good teams are spread out across
Yes.
the country,
Truly,
and not
truly.
just in the Southeast. You know, you listen to the podcast, you know we don't have a ton of love for the Southeastern Conference. Part of that is just exhaustion and wanting there to be good teams in the Midwest and the Northeast and the Southeast. You know, I also don't want there to be no good teams down there. Of course I do. I just want them out west and in Texas. And it'd be great if Colorado was actually good every once in a while and not the worst Power 5 team in the country. And, you know, it would be great if the Northeast actually had a viable college football program. Like, that would be wonderful. Aaron, like what you said, that was actually what kind of brought up. That was the main team that I was 1,000% wrong on. Because week one, Washington, I thought Kent State had a shot to beat them. Yeah. So that is probably the number one thing I've been the most wrong on this year. And it's really, as the season's gone on, not an indictment on Kent State, but more of an, advertisement for how good Washington is, which DeBoer coming from Fresno State year one, after how awful Washington looked last year with Jimmy Lake. I mean, well done, sir.
That is a significant turnaround.
Yes. And I know the transfer portal absolutely helps, where you can bring in a Michael Penix and, you know, kind of right the ship from the quarterback position as well. But that is a wholesale change from last year. You know, Aaron, you're talking about Pac-12. Washington State is viable. Oregon State's viable. We got Utah is viable still. Don't count them out yet. USC is viable. I know UCLA almost lost to South Alabama, but they're undefeated still, so they're at least interesting at this point. So Pac-12, it's great to have them here. But I was going to say the team that I'd kind of also been wrong on is Georgia. I thought they'd take a significant step back, especially on the defensive side. And guys, I know it's South Carolina and they're rebuilding, but that was impressive and scary. Georgia has, that was a shutout, correct?
I think South Carolina got a garbage touchdown at the end, I believe.
Oh, did they? Okay. Yeah. But up until that point, they'd given up 3 points. 3 points in meaningful play. Yeah. Really, through 3 games. 3 points to Oregon. That was it. So Georgia is terrifying. They're easily the number 1 team in the country. I wasn't expecting Georgia to be bad. They had enough returning. Stetson Bennett still leading. They were going to be solid. I did not expect the offense to have that explosiveness. I didn't expect the defense to almost not lose a step. They still might not be as good as they were last year. The schedule hasn't really done a ton for them to show that, but I am incredibly impressed by Georgia, and I definitely have been wrong about them to start. Not doubting anymore. Not that I even was after week 1, truly, but that's definitely one of the teams.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Stetson Bennett as a Heisman candidate because of how he's playing. So much credit to him. He's proved so, including most of us, he's proven so many people wrong. I have so much respect for what he's done. I mean, we're talking about a team that had 15 players drafted. That shattered an NFL record in the modern draft era. And yet here they are. They reload the defense that looks just as strong as last year, and the offense is improved from last year. I mean, this team is so scary. And yeah, maybe it's worked out to the point that maybe Oregon isn't really that good, but I mean, Oregon beat what I think is a good BYU team by a ton. Like, I don't think the Georgia-Oregon game was a fluke. Georgia is just that good.
It wasn't a test of Oregon. It was basically just a showcase of what Georgia was going to do. Because, that was the one game I was able to treat myself to this weekend in the middle of schoolwork was Oregon BYU. And my goodness, I'm like, this is an explosive, dynamic, this is a great team against another decent team of BYU, good team of BYU. And I'm like, I don't want to see Georgia.
Yeah, seriously. I think we all had them out of our playoff, not because we didn't think they were going to be good, but we thought all it's going to take is one regular season loss and a loss in the SEC championship, and they're knocked out. And at this point, I don't see how that. It's a long season, but I really don't see how that loss in the regular season happens. I mean, maybe Tennessee has a prayer, but we'll find out maybe a little bit more this week because Tennessee hosts Florida. That's where game day is going. So we'll learn more about them. I will say one other point that I don't think I brought up on this show, but I did bring up on our Football Monday show that Jonny and I host, and that's available on our YouTube channel. So go check that out if you want more college football and NFL talk. But I said that I thought 2 coaches would be fired in the middle of the year. I thought Brian Harsin from Auburn would be fired for a variety of different reasons, some within and some without, or some in and some out of his control. The other was Herm Edwards at Arizona State. The writing was on the wall there. It happened a lot faster than I thought because Arizona State got upset by Eastern Michigan. It was the MAC's first ever win over a Pac-12 school. And guys, did you see what happened? What's happening on Twitter today? This man, after the game, walks over to where I think it was the athletic director and somebody else, and he gets fired on the field.
On the spot. You can read his lips. He's like, yep, I get it. I understand. No hard feeling. It was like, oh, no, guys. That's definitive.
I think there can be some hard feelings for it happening on the field.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're allowed.
I have no issue with him getting fired. Again, I predicted it, so I could kind of see where this was going. That has been a horribly managed situation, but yikes. Apparently, I was reading through some Twitter comments, and I can't remember any of specific examples off the top of my head, but apparently this is not the first time that a coach has just been basically fired on the field. It's actually Brett Bielema at Arkansas was one of the names brought up that had essentially happened as well. So that's insane to me that you would do it then, but they wanted that man out of town, and Arizona State and Herm Edwards kind of finally gave him that opportunity. So, not to be all dark and doom and gloom about those coaches, but I was right about that. And Penn State just killed Auburn this week, so that's one more nail in Brian Harsin's coffin. That seems ever more likely that he will be gone before, and their schedule gets just insanely difficult as we move forward as well. So, could be some rough times in Auburn. All right, I think that kind of wraps us up as far as our thoughts. Our thoughts there on college football, the NFL, where we were right, where we were wrong. Certainly, as we said, plenty of time to be even more right or more likely, even more wrong. So, also Kansas 3-0 playing 3-0 Duke. That's where game day should have gone. Kansas. Absolutely. Let's go. I'm here for 4-0 Kansas. I'm pulling for that. Duke, no disrespect to you guys, but Kansas could be 4-0.
Major disrespect. Please take it personally. Wow. We're all cheering for Kansas.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, dude.
All I'm saying is 2007, App State upsets top 10 team Michigan. Kansas goes 11-2 that season. 2022, App State beats top 10 Texas A&M. Kansas 4-0 start. I know they say correlation doesn't mean causation or vice versa. I don't care what the saying is. In this case, it does mean that. Yeah. All right. Guys, we have a lot to unpack in our picks of the week. So let's just start with what we picked. We picked the Eurobasket. Johnny, you got the closest because France made it to the final, but Spain beat them. None of us picked Spain, so just zeros across the board.
Guys.
And I should say that our current standings before this week were myself with 41 points, Josh with 39, Johnny with 36. But we've been playing our NFL Eliminator, and it has gone horribly for us, except for Josh. Johnny, you didn't even make it through week 1 because your Monday Night Football Denver Broncos lost to the Seahawks. Then we didn't know that yet, so we both picked the Cincinnati Bengals, who lost on the game-winning kick to the Dallas Cowboys. Josh, it only took you 2 weeks to win.
Squeezed. That was
and it was close.
Tight.
It was close.
Josh, not great.
What was your pick the second week? I don't remember.
No, I picked Broncos before that Monday night game had finished, and so then you texted in our group chat, "Oop!" and I look at the score and I go, "Oh no, we're done. We're all done this week." And they Russell Wilson got them just a touch.
Yeah.
And listen, I'll take the points.
Yep.
So now I got to figure out.
Well, that's the thing. So now our scoreboard is myself 41. Josh, you earned that point, 40. Johnny, 36. And by the way, we even talked you out of basically picking Detroit over Washington, which that also would have been correct. So Josh, you've been killing it. So
don't take any of our advice. We're terrible at
Yes. So without us saying anything, Josh, we're just gonna support you on this run. Let's just see how far you can go. I don't know, like, if we need to like give you more points from like more games that you win, because you just like absolutely destroyed us, but
I think if you get to week 5,
that's what I'm thinking too.
One more point.
I'm good with that.
Fair. Two more correct picks. I got to look here.
Yeah.
Because now, so
no,
you know what?
If I'm remembering correctly, you do not have this. I'm trying to think who you picked week 1.
I don't have the Ravens.
That's
and
right.
I don't have the Broncos.
Okay.
So which is good. I eked that one out.
Yeah.
I'm looking in just my gut.
Yeah.
Hold on, I gotta double check. I'm looking Chiefs at Colts, and that one looks okay.
Yeah.
That seems reasonable. I'm just gonna scan real quick. You have Saints at Panthers, you have Ravens at Patriots, could be fun. Bengals at Jets could be fun, but I'm not. Steelers. Ooh. Steelers at Browns could be chaotic.
But that would be a highly risky pick, Josh.
That's a highly. I know. I don't. We're gonna go. I'm taking. I'm taking Chiefs over Colts.
Okay.
I'll lock that one in because that seems.
All right.
Chiefs seem real dominant right now. Colts are still figuring things out.
Yeah.
But that seems like an okay pick.
All right.
Hold on, I'm just gonna see what the Cowboys are doing. Oh, Cowboys over. No, I'll take Chiefs over Colts. I'll take Chiefs over Colts.
Nice. Locked in. Josh, best of luck to you. You were the clear
Thank
winner.
you.
We wish you success moving forward. All right. Johnny, thank you for your input here. I left in our show notes, I left it up to you guys as far as what to pick. So here's the options that Johnny has provided. And both of these options are fantastic.
These are great.
The first option is just an absolute sickos game where you have 1-3 Hawaii at New Mexico State. And it's such a sickos game that you have to purchase a subscription to Flow Sports to even watch it. That is just peak sickos. Or we have the aforementioned Duke at Kansas. Guys, can I suggest something crazy? That we picked both games because they're both incredible?
Absolutely.
All right.
I gave too good of options.
Yeah.
I apologize.
I'm going to take Hawaii, and I just have to go with Kansas.
Can I give more context to the Hawaii New Mexico State game?
Absolutely.
Yeah, please give me that. I want to know before I pick.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of these days, Aaron will post my bottom 10.
Yes.
Or something for the worst teams in college football. So if you know me, I track way too much of this.
Yeah.
New Mexico State and Hawaii is the game of the century. It's number 1 against number 2 in the rankings. 0-4 New Mexico State, who has lost to UTEP. New Mexico State is always terrible. They're so bad that the Mountain West, who has neighboring New Mexico in their conference, will not allow New Mexico State in. The Sun Belt kicked them out. New Mexico State is independent. They are terrible. They are 0-4. They are a perennial on this list. New Mexico State, I would love for you to get off the list, but you don't. Hawaii is 1-3. They barely squeaked out against the aforementioned game against FCS Duquesne last week. This is one of their few winnable games. So, I mean, for both schools. So I am thrilled. This is in New Mexico State.
Yep.
If that,
that's so bad.
Yeah. So if that affects your choice at all, the home team is New Mexico State.
And that does make me want to pick the Aggies. By the way, these two teams played twice last year because they just had to try to find a win. They played twice.
And New Mexico State lost this last week to Wisconsin 66-7. So now Hawaii got blitzed by Vandy. These are bad teams. So choose what you will at your own risk.
Right now, the line, Vegas has Aggies by 2.5, which seems
it's a toss-up
because it's like, oh, home team. I don't know. Over under 55 points, which I
Generous.
would hope.
Do not bet this game. I don't really tell people to do with their money. Do not bet this game.
Don't waste your money on this game.
Don't do that to yourself.
Only if you guys have a house rule in your fantasy team, in your fantasy league. It's like loser has to bet on the worst game of the week, like the next week. Otherwise, don't bet on this game. We're not putting money down on this game. You know what? I'm taking Hawaii.
Oh.
Why? Because Rainbow Warriors is still a fantastic name.
Yes, it is.
I have to take them from the name.
Okay.
That's all I got nothing. Nothing.
There's no logic in picking this game, guys.
There's no logic in scheduling this game.
There is not. So I'm going with New Mexico State.
I just matched Aaron. Dang it.
That's all right. It's worked for us so far.
Both of you, it's worked really poorly for me. But I'm going to go with the Aggies in this one. They are ranked my absolute worst team. I do think Hawaii's had a little bit of a rough stretch. Like they had to play. The travel schedule for Hawaii does them no favors. So let's be somewhat fair. Like when they had to play Michigan, like did they have a chance anyway? No, but traveling all the way to Michigan from Hawaii is like 8 time zones or something. It's something insane. So like Hawaii has it rough with the travel schedule, but I'm going to go New Mexico State. I'll go with the Aggies. Why? No reason at all. No reason at all. We're going with the Aggies with a slight upset. Number 1 over number 2 in the worst rankings.
The Aggies will be headed to Conference USA, by the way. So they're not independent forever.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Shows you how desperate Conference USA is, but anyways. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Kansas.
I do have Kansas winning for sure. They got a real Lance Leipold, like he's already been mentioned for the Nebraska job. Kansas needs to do whatever they can to hold on to that man. I know it's year 2, but for Kansas to already have 3 wins is magical. And Jaylon Daniels, as at quarterback, has just been insane. So he's just the spark that the team needed. And this is not a talented team or group of guys that, based on recruiting numbers. Aaron, what are they? 128th. They're like 128. Like they're really bad as far as like recruiting. Obviously, I expect that to change next year with how this season's going. Duke's looked really solid this year so far too. So we're all picking Kansas, but we're picking with our hearts here. I think with the Jayhawks more than our heads. Duke has an absolute chance to win this game. I just think Kansas is on a run and they're at home. I expect that place to be rocking and wild, despite game day deciding to go somewhere else. So fingers crossed that the Jayhawks can keep it going, and maybe we'll still get game day in Lawrence before the season's over.
Well, here's the scenario, right? If they beat Duke and Iowa State can beat Baylor, I mean, are we talking a top 25 undefeated matchup between Iowa State and Kansas? We probably are. Kansas is getting votes in the AP poll. Another win?
I love this.
I mean, it's not crazy. That's their chance. Game day has never been to
24th
Kansas.
and 25th.
Yeah.
But who cares?
That'd be incredible.
I'll take it.
Yeah. So that's what we're rooting for. Go Iowa State, go Kansas. We want that showdown.
Absolutely.
So, Jaylon Daniels is pretty sensational. So There you go. I mean, this is a team that won 2 games. It was a 3-point win over South Dakota last year. And then, of course, that famous 1-point win at Texas, a 57-56 victory. That's a lot of points for a team that averaged 20 points a game last year. Much improved. You love to see it. So there's our picks of the week. Thank you guys for that. Jonny, just excellent selection. So hats off to you for that recommendation. All right, that does take us to what we're following, and I will kick us off in the nature of college football. Look, it's easy to get carried away as college football fans. We understand. I mean, Jonny was up until 2 a.m. watching Hawaii and Duquesne. The COO of Beyond Meat took it in a different direction. He was and is an Arkansas Razorbacks fan. Now, Arkansas completed their win last week, barely, over Missouri State in just all the irony of that game. I don't need to go into details there, but all of the irony. If you know, you know. So our Beyond Meat COO, and I'm trying to find his name. I don't know if they've actually released his. Well, I mean, if he's a COO, you would think his name is around here somewhere. Anyways, we'll just name him Beyond Meat Guy, I guess, because I can't find it.
He does not look like the guy who'd be the CEO.
That's the best name anyway.
Oh, I found it. Doug Ramsey. He was arrested for...
He looks like a Doug.
He does look like a Doug. No offense to any Dougs out there. Doug Ramsey, COO of Beyond Meat, was arrested for biting the tip of a man's nose off in a stadium parking road rage incident after a Razorbacks college football game. So... Apparently, this man worked for Tyson Foods for 30 years and has been at Beyond Meat for less than 1 year, which that alone just makes you... That's just an interesting dynamic. That he's the COO, and he bit a man's nose off. So that's... I mean, look, there's so many options you could choose for road rage. And look, none of them are good. We are certainly not encouraging road rage. But somehow, of all the choices, you decided just take a bite of a man's nose. That's the route you went. That's questionable, but all at the same time makes sense. Just, yeah.
That's fun.
Awesome.
Missouri State just really got him riled up.
Yeah, apparently.
Looks like a vehicle bumped his tire.
Yeah, that would do it.
Of his lifted vehicle, so.
Bite a man's nose off. That seems reasonable.
Justified.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
the most reasonable reaction is to bite someone.
That's what I would do. I mean, anytime down here in Dallas, you got to be assertive down here. Anytime someone even looks at my car in a weird way, I do actively bite their nose clean off.
Yeah, that's very logical, Josh. Speaking of, going back to something you brought up last week, Josh, there's been a new development in the Magnus Carlsen chess. Well, it's not his scandal, cheating scandal, but did you see this? That Magnus Carlsen got a rematch with the guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the guy that was potentially cheating. They ended up rematching, and it was like an online thing where both of their cameras are active and all this, and you can like tune into the stream and watch. Magnus Carlsen tunes in for this match he's supposed to play, makes one move, and signs out and resigns the game. So he is clearly still very upset about this, still being, he's basically, like you said last week, he's demonstrating the fact that he knows that cheating has happened without actually saying it. But it's just an interesting dynamic, and it continues. Well, so there's chess drama again this week. Who knew?
Yes.
And
that's and specifically, we know that Neiman cheated twice, specifically in online matches. Mm-hmm. By his own admission. And so, like, I can listen. I don't, as much of a chess head as I am, I can't say that I condone what can be seen as the petty move by Carlsen. But a rematch online, that's not against a guy who's known to cheat online. I would also not trust whatever results of that game were to happen even if I won. So you need, if you're gonna rematch, you rematch in person. You check, you pull a TSA move, make everyone take off their shoes, check for any buzzers.
Yep.
And so, this is interesting. Thank you for reminding me. I had forgotten to check.
Yes.
This.
That's the update. So yeah, that's what I'm following. I'm also following that in the midst of all this football, Major League Baseball is winding down. Aaron Judge is on a home run rampage, and the NBA, the NHL are actually less than a month away from starting. So yeah, just the schedule gets busier and busier. Of course, we're also inching ever closer to the World Cup, basically 2 months from today. Or actually, I shouldn't say 2 months from today. 2 months from when this episode will come out is when the World Cup is starting. So start your countdowns now. T-minus 2 months. So that's what I'm following.
Yeah, when that happens, you guys just won't see me for a month. But
Yeah.
other than on here, of course. What I'm following two things because I just have to follow the two of them. And once again, I am following more tennis news. So
Yes.
sorry for those of you who aren't interested, but two of the greatest tennis players ever retiring within, a couple weeks of one another is absolutely wild. So if you're not aware, don't keep up with tennis all the time. Roger Federer did announce his upcoming retirement this last week via social media. He's going to play in the Lavar Cup. And he did say that he still will be playing, but he's going to retire from the tour. He won't be competing in any majors anymore. We haven't seen Roger in 14 months just with lingering injuries. He is 41 years old, which for tennis is just as remarkable as Tom Brady still playing at his age now. So Roger is really who ushered in the new era of tennis. He's older than Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic, and is the first man to get to 20 major titles as well. He's now third, as Djokovic and Nadal have both passed him at 22 and 21 at this point. But I will give him credit, and then I'll also just tell a story because I think we get lost in the stats and everything, and just more personally for Roger, he's always been my favorite tennis player. The most fun guy to watch. I think he is, people overuse this phrase, but class personified. When he did everything, it's tennis, so the word you'd use is as a gentleman. But that man, in victory, in defeat, how he acted, be outside of the court, on the court, just brilliant. That he is the reason I love tennis and got into tennis, both playing and watching. One of my most memorable matches with Federer is actually a loss against Novak Djokovic in the Wimbledon 2019 final. That match went almost 5 hours long. With one set being over 2 hours. He had multiple chances to win that match. It was just a wild one. One of his last real good chances to win a major before, age and injuries really caught up with him. But watch just a quick YouTube video of some of the shots this man could make. It just looks so easy, so simple, so clean, so rhythmic. When he was out there, it was just something beautiful to behold, and just you can't help but fall in love with the game when you get to watch Roger play. So sad to see him go. Kind of knew it was coming. Still will miss him out on the tour, but hope Roger has a wonderful retirement. He is definitely one of the best ever, and he's the reason Nadal and Djokovic really are who they are, as they had to continually get better as even age was creeping up on Roger. They had to increase and get better at their game to overcome him. So he is the reason why the big three are who they are. So happy retirement, Roger. And then my next one will be very quick. It's a little bit of a rant. The Columbus Crew, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, dropped a win yet again Sunday afternoon as they let the Portland Timbers, who are also battling for a playoff spot, the Crew allowed a goal in the 95th minute in stoppage time. They were up 1-0 at home. These are must-win games. Let me tell you the Crew's record right now, just the record, and you tell me how sane this sounds. They are currently 9-15. Remember, the middle number is draws, and 7. 9-15-7 with 42 points. Guys, they have surrendered 19 points from winning positions. Let me explain that for you non-soccer people really quick. So, basically you're up in the match, late in the match, And those are points you've given away, whether that means you end up losing or you end up with a draw. So, you're up 1-0 like they were yesterday. You end up tying late in the game. That's 2 points. 19. They're running away with the most draws in the league at 15. They've allowed 15 goals after the 75th minute this year.
Yikes.
15 goals. I talked to a lot of Crew fans after the game yesterday. People weren't even angry after the game. It's gotten to the point of acceptance that they were waiting for it. The stadium, the crowd was waiting for it. And I've been there when they have blown it. And it's usually that anger, that angst. After the game, it was just solemn and quiet. That's when you know you've lost them. And it's mental for the players now. And listen, like, all the gratitude in the world for what Caleb Porter did to get that MLS Cup.
Mm-hmm.
It is coaching. It is scheme. After this season, they don't make the playoffs. It's time to make a change. They're in the 8th position right now. They have top 7 make the playoffs. They're tied in points with Miami, but the next spot is wins. And so they're not going to win that tiebreaker with anyone because Miami has 3 more wins. There's only 3 matches left to go. And they play currently the 3 seed, the 4 seed, and the 5 seed to get in. So you're playing the right teams, hypothetically. But it's an uphill climb now for the Crew, and they have no one to blame but themselves. So what I'm following is the Crew's collapse and a very frustrated fan base right now. So still hope they make the playoffs. They're paying too much, and there's too much talent on this team for them to miss the playoffs. I think it might be Caleb Porter on the way out if they whiff on making the playoffs this season, and can't blame management for that decision.
Yeah. Well, at least Columbus's college football team's looking good. 77 points against Toledo. Interesting game against Wisconsin this week. So, sorry your soccer team's not doing so hot. All right. Well, I think that wraps us up for this episode. We just want to say thank you again.
Hey guys.
Oh, wow. I'm dumb. I completely forgot about Josh. How do I forget about Josh? I should be fired from my job that I don't get paid for skipping what Josh is following.
Hey guys.
I was like, did I miss that somehow?
Dang.
Can I talk about baseball, please?
Yeah, please do, Josh. Sorry, I'm the worst.
Just end too many episodes on me ranting about something that I'm angry
I was going to say,
about.
this is normally
force a habit.
switch
You're
it
right.
up to where I can pull the lighthearted thing at the end. Guys, baseball's going to change. We talked about this as a main segment probably about a month and a half, 2 months ago at this point. However, those rules that were proposed are actually going to go into play. Some of the rules that were in the MILB have switched over to MLB. So starting in the 2023 season, the small things, which are whatever, the bases are going to go from 15 inches square to 18 inches square, and that's going to be more room. The goal there is player safety and fewer collisions. I don't remember if we had an opinion on that. For me, that's a give or take. They're obviously limiting defensive shifts, which again, we've talked about before. The one thing that I'm interested in, and it was interesting because now this was announced 2 weeks ago at this point, but we had interesting things to cover last week with chess. So I put it on hold. You guys can understand.
Yep.
The one that'll be interesting is the pitch timer that was experimented with in the MLB and is going to go into the main league. Specifically, a 15-second timer. Let's just start at the beginning. There's going to be a 30-second timer between batters. Between pitches, there will be a 15-second timer with the bases empty, and a 20-second timer with runners on base. This is according to the MLB's official press release or whatever. At last check, the pitch timer had reduced the average time of a game in the MILB by about 26 minutes.
That's a lot.
Which is a lot of minutes.
Yep.
And so it's obviously designed to increase the pace of the game, to kind of maybe cut some of the fat of that downtime out. Now here's an interesting thing. This is from a tweet that I found by, it lost it again. Here it is. Joe Pompliano. who I believe writes for Huddle Up, or the Huddle Up, whatever that newsletter is. Here's the average MLB length of a game. As of, I believe, this would have been last year. 3 hours and 5 minutes, with what you would call actual like minutes of play. So like a thing is happening. About 18 minutes of that is actual gameplay. Now we're not used to that. A lot of it's downtime with these types of games now. Let's compare that to the NFL. The NFL last year, average length of game was 3 hours and 12 minutes with an actual game time of about maybe 11 minutes. So it's interesting that baseball is trying to speed up the pace of game when it really does equal that of an NFL game, and I would say has a touch more. Actually, yeah, it demonstrably has on average seven to 8 more minutes of actual play time. So it is interesting to see how the perception of time within the MLB is definitely different from that at the NFL, because the last time, I went to a Cardinals Brewers game back over the summer, and I will tell you, I didn't feel like the game was dragging out in any way. It was about a 3-hour game, pretty standard. And so it is nice that, 26 minutes, that is significant. And so you're going to see that game shore up quite a bit as far as the time. It is interesting to see how not every other league, at least the comparable one, the big one, NFL, is not making those same efforts because there's no need to for them. So I don't have a big commentary on that. I'm just like, oh, this is very interesting how NFL has been historically let off the hook with this, where they have pretty much the same amount of the game time is about the same.
Yeah, I'll say overall, as kind of maybe the biggest baseball fan on the podcast, I will say overall, this is a big, massive W for Major League Baseball. All of it.
Oh, sure.
The shift going away is great. The game time being shortened is also great. Yeah, Josh, your point's well taken. That relatively speaking, it's kind of the same like NFL or football in general. You have a play every 30 or so seconds. You have a pitch every 30 or so seconds. But I think the reality is clearly football is a vastly more enjoyed sport in America, just more popular. And baseball is just a completely different feel. But to try to pull in the casual fan, 2.5 hours of waiting around it just feels different in a baseball game than it does in football.
It absolutely
This is huge. This is a big deal for Major League Baseball. By the way, everyone's going to think about, okay, well, how will this affect the pitcher, especially for guys that take a lot longer? That's all very true. But also consider that this new pitch clock is also a responsibility of the batter. Batters have to be in the box, ready to go. That 30-second interval between when they need to come up and be ready to hit, that's going to be a change that will need to be made from the hitters as well. So that will be very interesting. But I'm pumped to see what this looks like next year. In addition, you also have changes to the schedule. So every Major League Baseball team will be playing every other Major League Baseball team for the first time, I think probably ever, maybe.
Yeah,
since, way back when, until there was fewer teams in baseball. So overall, I'm a big proponent of what baseball is doing. I think this is great. The only thing they need to get rid of is the runner on second base to begin extra innings. But you know what? If that's the battle I lose in all of this, I'll take it. This is great. I love it.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting these are changes that were proposed by the MLB to the Joint Competition Committee. Like these were all like, this was a very cooperative effort.
Yeah.
And so like we've talked about the MLB not quite hitting that Gen Z markets. We've talked about how like no offense to them, a joke baseball team in the Savannah Bananas can pull more TikTok followers and Instagram followers than the MLB's official page. However, I think overall these are very good moves. I'm excited to see how this affects the game. If you read their press release, it is all very much like we want to return to not a traditional, but like what attracted people to the sports originally. These plays, it's not just going to be home runs or nothing. They're trying to make infield plays a little bit more relevant, which I think is always a good option.
Yeah.
They want, guys, and I'll just be quick because you guys already talked about much of this. I think like what you just said is the key, Josh. More people involved in the game of play, really, and not just the pitcher and batter. being involved in a play-to-play basis.
It's not just a
which
glorified
is
home run
always-
derby.
which is always going to be a huge part of baseball. And I think that's part of the football thing. You have 11 guys on each side, and they're all doing something every single play, no matter what.
Absolutely.
In baseball, most of the time your players are just standing around, except the pitcher, catcher, and the batter. Like, you got 3 guys involved, maybe a couple more if there's a base runner. But even then, it's depending on whether the runner is actually attempting to steal or how big of a leadoff he's getting there. Getting the ball in play more, less shifts, quicker pitching, ball gets into play, shortstop, third baseman, second baseman, first baseman, outfielders are all going to be involved a little bit more. There's going to be more small ball going on with the bigger bases as well. You guys are absolutely right. Huge win. The more action and the more stuff that's going on and the more that we can appreciate plays outside of home runs, the better for baseball.
100%. 100%. Totally agree. I'm excited. It feels like for the first time in a while, there's some positive steps forward for Major League Baseball. And I think it's going to help, like this run that Aaron Judge is on too. There's a lot of eyeballs on the run that he's making. And I don't really root for the Yankees, but am I excited to see a guy that could potentially break some records held by steroid users? Absolutely. Yeah. Give that to me. So we'll see how far he goes. He's at 59 home runs as we're recording this podcast. Goodness knows he might have a couple more by the time you actually get to hear it. The American League record, I believe, is held by Babe Ruth at 60. So he is right there. So that's going to be some well, you know what I'm trying to say. That will be must-watch television. There we go. When he's at bat here in the next couple weeks. All right. Now that I have so rudely interrupted Josh
I am done
once.
speaking now.
Josh is done. So that does mean it is time to wrap up this episode. As I was saying, thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. 80 episodes in. It's great to have you still here along with us on the ride. As we mentioned at the beginning, make sure you follow us on social media for lots more sports content. We always enjoy having conversations with you folks, including last week we released our top 25 and we got to talk about Kansas that should be ranked, and we were joking, and now they're 3-0 with the chance to be 4-0, and we will be serious maybe in putting them in our top 25 after this week. Who knows? So make sure you check us out on social media and YouTube and all the places. We appreciate it. Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, please leave a review. We would appreciate that a lot. That helps our show grow, which is awesome. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Have a good one.
Cool. Josh, you got to get out of here.
I do, but I can at least get this out. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That was a good. I liked that. That was a good episode.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, it was good.
I am exporting. I will upload later tonight.
Yeah,
So.
that works.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
See ya.
See you, Josh.
See ya.
Okay,
All
that's
right.
loading.
Yeah.
I am putting betting lines in all of my on my sheet for the week. So,
Beautiful.
yep.
Beautiful.
That way we have them.
Yeah, I need to. Do you know what your record was last week? I forgot. I didn't have a chance to check.
I was 2 and 3, so I'm 6 and 1.
Okay, there you
through
go.
3 weeks. Well, did I? I don't think I bet week 0. So yeah, 3 weeks.
Excuse me. All right, I need to figure out, somehow I noticed when I've been playing music, number one, it's like really loud and it's like coming through double. So I'm going to see if I can fix that. I need to step away real quick.
That's okay. I'm going to grab some water anyway.
Yeah, 2 seconds. But I was going to throw on some music, but I need to see why it's so loud and doubled up on stream. I actually have no idea why. Because it should just be coming through once.
Oh, interesting. Notre Dame's a favorite.
Yeah,
At
barely.
North Carolina. I know it's 1 point, but still.
I want to see if I can find out why this audio is going through double. See what it sounds like here. This computer will load. Quick mic check, see how loud this is.
We're not recording the football, are we?
All right, I'm going to step away here for a second, and I will be right back.
Sure. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, you're right. These picks are pretty wild.
They're wild.
Yeah.
Vegas has a lot of respect, in my opinion, for Oregon State. USC is only a 6.5 point favorite.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's at Corvallis too, I believe, 9:30
I
p.m.
do.
kick.
I'm surprised that that's the line, though. Like, I don't disagree with it. Just surprised.
All right, I think I'm all set if you are.
Yeah. Let me grab some water real quick.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Be right back. We're not recording this one, are we?
Nope. No, just on YouTube.
I will be right back. All right, I am good.
Sweet. Welcome to episode 5 of Football Mondays. Johnny, good to be back with you. Talking more college football. It was, we didn't have any like crazy upsets like we had in week 2, but I feel like there's still plenty of storylines from this week. There was just a little bit of everything, but I want to start with the game that we actually had the chance to attend. We went to Paycor Stadium, home of the Cincinnati Bengals, where we took in the 126th edition of the Victory Bell rivalry. It is the oldest non-conference rivalry game in all of college football. So I want to get your thoughts. It ended up being a Cincinnati 38-17 victory. Actually, I'm in the process of editing a YouTube video that is potentially already out by the time you're watching this. But you said in your prediction, you said 37-17, and you basically like walked through every step of how the game went. And that's exactly how it did. But I'm curious your thoughts on Cincinnati. Obviously, their run to the college football playoff last year was unprecedented, an amazing year. And they opened up a season against a good Arkansas team, lost by a touchdown. Since then, they've won every game. They're 2-1, looking ahead to a game against Indiana this week. But just curious your thoughts on what you saw from the Bearcats and kind of how you see their season moving forward.
Yeah, can I get a point for that?
That's what I was thinking. You've had such a dry spell.
I mean, that's so spot on.
Yeah,
I feel like I deserve something for being just 1 point off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have some concerns for the Bearcats looking forward. I think Indiana will be still not even quite a measuring stick for them, unfortunately, this year. While the Hoosiers might be undefeated, they needed a furious comeback to survive Western Kentucky and remain undefeated this year. They've had some near close calls, and I think there will be several teams in the American much better than the Hoosiers, if I'm being completely honest with you. I do think that there are some quality opponents, including I think there might be more depth in the American this year than elite teams. So they're going to get tested every week. Bryant is a great veteran presence, calming presence. You know, Coach Fickle was talking in the press conference afterwards, and you can see it on the field. Started the game 12 for 12. He was pinpoint despite 2 early fumbles, falling behind 17-7. Didn't lose control. Even the pick was questionable on his fault in it off a tip. Without those turnovers, the game's not really close. So Miami got what they needed early on to really make it a good game. The ball security issues, though, are concerning going forward for the Bearcats. They clean that up. They can win that American Conference once again. But those are big concerns for a team that has aspirations of getting back to the New Year's Six this year, despite that early loss to Arkansas. That secondary took a little bit to grow into the game, but they figured it out. The most impressive part, let me just say the most impressive, and then I'll kick it back to you, was in the trenches. And they have a marginal advantage, of course, over the Red Hawks in that area. I mean, you just have to look at the weight and size difference between the two schools to see that. But they did exactly what they should do. Bryant had time all day in a clean pocket to find his targets, 2 receivers over 100 yards. Anytime they wanted to run, they ran at will. And even when Miami knew it was going on, they were pressuring Avion Smith, the Red Hawks quarterback. He was running for his life. Really affected that passing game. He didn't even throw for 100. I think it was below 150 yards in the game. Yeah. So they in the trenches looks just like a Luke Fickle team. They just need to clean up some of those mistakes. The turnovers, the penalties were really rough for them, especially in the first half.
Yeah, they were, and that was kind of the first thing Fickle talked about in the press conference. He kind of opened with that, gave his overall thoughts, was excited for that win in the rivalry. By the way, you have to go back to 1915 for the last time that Cincinnati was leading in the all-time series. They are now 60-59-7 is the all-time series. So good for Cincinnati. 16 wins in a row. They've just completely dominated that series, which is great for them. Unfortunately, I feel like it kind of takes away from the rivalry. I think people kind of lose sight of this one just because it's been so one-sided, but it really is a great rivalry. But I completely agree. I echo your thoughts. It's crazy that Cincinnati had so many, I think had 9 players drafted last year, which is just kind of unheard of from a group of 5 team, even though I hate that label. But the fact remains that there are still NFL players on this roster. Josh Wiley's a tight end who could have really been in the NFL last season, could have given them double-digit NFL draft picks. They have Deshaun Pace and Ivan Pace at the linebacker position. They're brothers, but that was such an interesting twist to this game, to this rivalry, because Ivan Pace was a member of the Miami Red Hawks last season. He was the MAC Defensive Player of the Year, and so far he's leading Cincinnati in tackles on the season. And he said in the press conference that, look, he was the Defensive Player of the Year in the MAC last year, and he said that he came into Cincinnati training camp, or training camp's probably not the right word, but fall camp, and basically came in at like 260. and worked really hard with the strength and conditioning coaches there, and he's now 230. And this guy is a beast. He's a little bit undersized, which is why he's maybe being overlooked, but he should not be because he's a really, really good talent. So just a really interesting twist to this rivalry. But yeah, you're right. Cincinnati's going to be right in the mix. You talk about the American Championship. They're looking for their third straight American Championship, their fourth straight appearance in the title game. And to me, it's going to boil down to the last 2 weeks in October. Back-to-back road trips at SMU, at Central Florida, at UCF. They don't play Houston, which is helpful. They do host East Carolina, but really, I'm sure if I'm the Bearcats, not if I'm the Bearcats, if I'm a Cincinnati fan, I'm circling those two games as the key to winning the conference. It could very well come down to there. Now, I think you're right. The depth is really good. East Carolina, they finished the year against Tulane. Tulane just beat Kansas State. And Tulane had a really rough year. Part of that was the hurricane. They got displaced for 4 weeks last year at the beginning of the season, if you remember. Nearly knocked off Oklahoma, but that kind of really overall, I think, set them back. It looks like there's some more stability there, so good for the Green Wave. This is a good conference, and I think it's going to be a really interesting battle. I know Houston had a couple of disappointing finishes the last 2 weeks, but you lose to a Texas Tech and a Kansas team. I mean, you have 2 Power 5 losses at the end of the day. I don't think it's going to ruin their conference hopes. So we'll see. But yeah, I agree. Really, really cool opportunity to go to Cincinnati and view that game, and stay tuned on social media to where we're heading next on our college football tour. All right. I know we've got picks to make, and there's some really intriguing matchups this week. Is there anything you want to talk about just kind of generally topic-wise before we dive into those picks, or should we just dive in and kind of talk about stuff as we go like we have been doing?
Yeah. You know what? You'll look at the rankings this week, and there's not a whole lot of change in the top 10. There's not a whole lot warranted. You had a few of those teams near the top, Clemson and Arkansas, really struggle in their games. So you might see a spot or two drop off, but a win is a win, and week 3 of the season will be long forgotten just in a few weeks from now. So you know what? Is that a little bit of a cause concern for Clemson or Arkansas? Sure. But Clemson beats Wake and Arkansas beats A&M this upcoming week, and nobody will remember how that game went.
Yep.
So there is a big shuffle behind the pack, if you will, of those teams that kind of outside that top 10, not really being thought about, that could threaten to make the playoff, or at least threaten to upset that top tier. So really fascinating to see that some clarity come into the middle there, and see who's the real true contenders to knock off Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama and Oklahoma and USC. Who can do that? We're starting to see some potential there. We're still not for sure whether these teams are legit or not. Some of them have some questionable schedules early on in the season, but really fascinated by teams like NC State. They beat a undefeated Texas Tech team. Penn State just went and throttled Auburn, and Auburn might not be good, but that's a quality road win early in the year. Washington, what they did to Michigan State, what a day for the Pac-12. Good for them. Oregon's probably not a threat, but at the same time, they jump right back into it with that big win. Yep. So you have questions about a team like Florida. Really probably should have lost to South Florida. Well, what did they look like? They still only have one loss. So you're starting to see kind of some more clarity with these matchups. And this week, I think we'll really know who has the opportunity and who's the true threat to those perennial powers. You have Tennessee, Florida. You have Baylor, Iowa State. You have some of these matchups. Minnesota plays Michigan State this week. Underrated game of importance. You have Oregon State playing USC. It's in Corvallis. You know what the Beavers do to the Trojans in Corvallis. So be careful. Be careful, USC. A lot of great games like that for us to who can actually challenge in these conferences. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get some clarity. The top of the rankings aren't really under too much of a threat this week. I say that at my own peril. But we're going to get some real good clarity. I'm excited. It's a really hard week to pick. It's a hard betting week.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we're really diving into conference play big time week 4. A lot of the Power 5 conferences are playing conference games. And actually 9 of our 10 picks we're about to make are conference games, with the exception beating Notre Dame, which should be a conference game. So anyways, I agree with you. There's some interesting games, so let's get into it. We'll kind of discuss these teams as we go. So kicking it off, we start in the Big 12, where Baylor, 2-1 after that loss to BYU, travels to an undefeated Iowa State team. Why are they undefeated? Because they finally beat their rivals, Iowa. This is a very intriguing matchup from Ames, an ESPN2 game at noon. I'm curious your thoughts. I think Baylor finds a way to squeak this out, but Iowa State's really, I mean, look, when the spotlight's on Iowa State, they usually don't do very well. But because of how last season ended, nobody was talking about Iowa State. In fact, most people, probably myself included, had them in the back half of the Big 12 standings, and that's right where Matt Campbell wants you. So I am going to pick Baylor, but as you said, at my own peril. I think this could be an extremely close game. I will not have this high in confidence. And by the way, it's not too late for you to join the Fifth and Goal Sports group on ESPN, where let me pull up the standings here. I'm in third place.
You're third. I'm fourth, right behind you.
But it's really close. I've got an 18-12 record with 121 points. Johnny, you've got a 17-13 record with 117 points. So we are right there. And really, my advantage is only because I had a 3-point difference in week 1. We were identical week 2. I was 1 point advantage over you in week 3. So we've been extremely close. We've also had similar picks, and this could be the week where we're actually significantly different. We'll see. But what do you have, Baylor, Iowa State?
I have Iowa State.
Okay.
And I really don't know why. I think it's going to be a defensive struggle. I've not been impressed with Baylor's offense to start the season. Other than the game against Albany, they really even got out to a very slow start even this last week against another completely overmatched opponent. And so while Iowa State's offense is no world beater either, I expect this to be a low-scoring game. Both teams, young quarterbacks, really focused on establishing the run. That is the focal point. Both defenses will know that coming in.
Yeah.
I think the difference maker here is the playmakers on the outside for Iowa State that I got to watch against Iowa. And Iowa's secondary is fantastic. Iowa's the butt of a lot of jokes. The defense is fantastic if you're looking at that for Iowa. So when it comes to Iowa State, just really impressed with that. Their quarterback's a little bit more of a gunslinger rather than just kind of a game manager. I think they will win or lose the game with him. He's not Brock Purdy, at least when it comes to those things. But I do think Decker's, their quarterback, is the difference in the game. He will win or lose based on his turnover and ability to make big plays. But Hutchinson, with 319 yards,
he's the best player that's going to be on that field. He is going to be the best player.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I have Iowa State slight favorite. Real slight. Again, very hard to pick. I'm going to say that a lot tonight. But I do have Iowa State with the win there. Iowa State is a 2.5-point favorite. That is by virtue of being home, I am sure.
Yeah, it should be fascinating. We mentioned it in our podcast, but if Iowa State does find a way to win and Kansas can beat Duke, you are looking at a 4-0 Kansas hosting a 4-0 Iowa State game day. This is your chance. Please, Iowa State and Kansas, don't fail us. And even though I picked Baylor, I will not be upset at all if Iowa State pulls this off for that incredible matchup. Who would have thought? Not us. All right, here's the next pick. Clemson travels to Wake Forest. Yes, Sam Hartman is back. It was a bit of a rocky road there for the Demon Deacons. Liberty gave Wake Forest all they could handle, but it was Wake Forest holding on at the end. They stop a 2-point conversion with 1:27 left in this game, and Clemson comes in with kind of still the same questions we had before the season started. What would the offense be like? Could they see success? Could they look improved with DJ at quarterback? And I think the answer, even though they are 3-0 to this point, unlike last season, is kind of no one knows. And this will be an interesting test against a Wake Forest team that's capable of putting up points. That Clemson defense has been pretty solid, and that's why I am going to pick Clemson. But I would not be shocked at all if Wake Forest pulls this off. And it's in Winston-Salem as well. That's an important point to know.
It'll be the Super Bowl at Winston-Salem. I'm sure they'll be packed out, ready to go.
Yep.
Right now, I am going to actually go with the Demon Deacons.
Okay.
And I will also be monitoring the injury report for Clemson during the week. So that will be a big deal. They have several injuries key on defense right now. If they're not able to go, I will feel a little bit better about Wake Forest pulling off the upset. It's hard to tell sometimes. Is Liberty that good? Is Wake Forest that bad?
Right.
Was Wake Forest just looking ahead to Clemson? Who could blame them for that? I really think Wake Forest finally does it this year. As you mentioned, Aaron, the offense is no better. The defense is solid, but that 48-20 finish against Louisiana Tech last week was not indicative of how close that game was. It was a one-score game for a lot of that one. So I'm major concerns for Clemson. They're not adapting. Georgia Tech is clearly awful, probably the second worst Power 5 school behind Colorado.
Yeah.
And that's to be seen. And they really struggled for 3.5 quarters against them. I know it was week 1, but there's no excuse in that. So they're struggling against really poor opponents. It's not a one-off with them. So I'm actually going to go Sam Hartman. What a story if he's able to pull it off. Wake Forest. Wake Forest.
I love it. All right, that takes us to the aforementioned Duke versus Kansas. Guys, 3-0, both teams. That's really, really impressive. They combined for 5 total wins last season. They now have combined for 6-0 record. Now, here's part of the thing you're trying to dissect, right? Here's Duke's opponents. They beat Temple. They beat Northwestern, which at the time you're like, oh, you beat Northwestern. Then Northwestern gets beat by Southern Illinois. Duke's last win came on Saturday against North Carolina A&T. Kansas, on the other hand, Tennessee Tech, West Virginia, and Houston. Those are their games. So, look, Kansas, I think, has shown a little bit more based on the kind of opponents they played. West Virginia, Houston are not horrible, and so that means something to me. It's at Kansas. Kansas is going to be going absolutely nuts for this game. I like the Jayhawks, and I think they could win by 20. I really do.
Yeah, Aaron, I completely agree. This is actually might have been what you should have mentioned is what you got most wrong of the college football season so far is probably Houston. So far, you haven't been too far off on just about anything else, but Houston just, oof.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that after 3 games played, that the most decisive defeat they would have is against Kansas? The other 2 games, last play of the game type of stuff, just nuts. That's why we love football. I have Kansas. I agree, Aaron. I think they cover one of my bets this week.
All right.
Jalen Daniels, like you said, the atmosphere will be electric. I don't think Duke will be ready for that. They don't get to play in a lot of big games. It's still first-year coach. I believe in Kansas. I think they got the juice right now. 4-0 Jayhawks. Let's do it.
Oh, man. Who would have thought? That's crazy. All right, we go to where game day will be for a 3:30 kickoff on CBS between the undefeated and number 11, although we'll see what you have them in your poll because that's the only one we care about. The Tennessee Volunteers hosting the Florida Gators. I think Tennessee's offense is really good. Hendon Hooker, I want to say in his starts, and let me pull up the stat so I'm not misquoting, but I believe in his starts, Hendon Hooker, 40 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. He has been sensational for the Volunteers. I think they win. We could get to a point where unless Anthony Richardson can improve his play, they could win handily because this is a Florida team that, yes, they beat Utah. That looked like it was a good win. Then a pretty poor performance against Kentucky, and then they almost lose to South Florida.
Should have lost.
Probably should have lost. So it makes you think, okay, what is this Florida team? It's a little bit hard to digest. Anthony Richardson, yes, he has so much talent. You know how many passing touchdowns he has this year? I believe it was 0 leading into the South Florida game, and it's still 0.
I believe it's still 0.
He's got to be much better, and I know he's feeling like it's pretty obvious. This is a guy that hasn't started very many games. I know he's feeling the pressure from the Florida fans. Can he kind of push through that here? I don't think he will, and I hope he has a great game, but this, to me, has a Tennessee victory written all over it, and I think they could win by double digits.
Yeah, I have Tennessee as well. Same reasons. Hendon Hooker, not only explosive playmaking, he's only turned the ball over twice since coming over to Knoxville. So he's been fantastic. I think Tennessee has a strong argument. They're the third best team in the SEC, just with how that offense looks. Defense needs a little bit of improvement, but no perfect teams behind Georgia and Alabama in that conference. I agree. They're at home in Knoxville, one of the largest games for Tennessee in a long time.
Yes.
That's very winnable as well. Home crowd matters a lot. I like Tennessee in this one as well, Aaron. We agree.
Yeah. All right. That takes us to the next game. Minnesota travels to Michigan State, a Michigan State team that ended up on the wrong end of a blowout in Seattle against the Washington Huskies. Look, I think that defense, that defense got exposed again. They were basically the worst pass defense in the country last year. They clearly have not improved. I like Minnesota, and that's even with the announcement that Chris Ottman-Bell is going to miss the entire season or the rest of the season, which unfortunately has just kind of been a theme for him. He's just never been able to stay healthy. It sounds like he's interested in potentially or has the opportunity to pursue a 7th year of eligibility with that injury. But Tanner Morgan, given he's up and down, all that, but he's been there forever and against a bad defense. And by the way, the key won't be him. It'll be Mohamed Ibrahim, who's been sensational, over 200 yards last week. Give me the Golden Gophers to start the year 4-0. I'm taking Minnesota on the road in East Lansing.
It's big time. If Minnesota can survive this game, they're looking at 6-7-0 perhaps.
Yes.
So big time game. I believe the Gophers.
By the way, why they're not ranked is ridiculous right now in the AP poll. In my mind.
You're not going to like my poll either.
That's okay.
They played no one. That's
I
part of
agree.
the problem. They just haven't played anyone.
But 3-0 should get you in the top 25, in my opinion. But that's fine.
Understandably. But do you want Indiana ranked too?
No, but Minnesota's at least handled business and blowing out some teams.
It's not the same. But when you play New Mexico State and an FCS school, it's kind of like. But Minnesota it's in East Lansing. You have to ask yourself Michigan State also spotted Washington such a huge lead that they were trying to play catch up, and it looked like they might be able to at some part in that game. I don't think Michigan State's as bad as they appeared in that game. Mm-hmm. It's a very young secondary still. They're still trying to figure out, yes, it is very bad. Good news for Michigan State is that Minnesota wants to run the ball. And it's not even just Ibrahim. That rushing attack is just monstrous in general. It's a deep running back room because of the injuries last year. They all got a lot of just time on the field and a lot of carries under their belt. It's probably the best team in the Big Ten West in Minnesota. I've gone back and forth on this one. I'm really struggling to pick it. I think I have the Spartans right now, though. It might be my lowest pick.
Yeah, it would be low in my confidence as well. So will this matchup. Notre Dame heads to Chapel Hill to play North Carolina. North Carolina is 3-0. I believe they are off of a bye week because they played in week 0. So that's an important note. Notre Dame finally eked out that first win against California. It was not pretty. They were down in the fourth quarter. They found a way. I'm taking the Tar Heels right now. I don't feel good about it. And this is going to be one of those picks where I go back and forth. Like I did with Texas A&M, and I should have picked Texas A&M because I finally got to the point where I'm like, okay, I think the Aggies win, but I didn't switch it. That could be what I see this week. I'm just going to kind of feel out what are we getting? What sound bites are we getting? How confident are we feeling? Again, Notre Dame's down to Drew Pine at quarterback. How do I feel about that? How do I feel about North Carolina not being able to play a lick of defense this year? I think what I see is that I think North Carolina's offense is yet again going to overcome some of those weaknesses. So I'm taking them. I'm taking them at home. They're 3-0, a chance to go 4-0. But I think this could be close. I think this could be real close.
Yeah. 1 point spread right now. Notre Dame's actually the favorite in Chapel Hill. It's a weird game. Stay away from it. Again, if you are a betting person, it's weakness on weakness. It's just what the doctor ordered for the Notre Dame offense. It's just strength on strength, where the only thing Notre Dame has been able to show is some level of quality on defense against just May and that incredible passing attack. I think where I land here is my gut says Notre Dame for some reason, much like A&M last week, Aaron. I couldn't think of how the path to victory would show out. And truly, The way victory happened was just via turnovers and missed field goals. So, that's the college game sometimes. My gut says Notre Dame, but being at home and North Carolina having a bye week, I trust Mac Brown. I'm going to give North Carolina the win.
Yeah, that sounds good. What did you think about that A&M Miami game? That's a game we haven't really talked about. I kind of left that game thinking, I think both these teams might be not great. Like, they're not bad, but I think they're both like 8-4, 9-3. I was like,
I don't have either one ranked.
Oh, nice.
I don't have either one of them ranked.
Yeah.
I came away from that game. Like, I even had Miami, I think, up at like 15 last week. And again, it's so early in the season, guys. You cannot be this drives me nuts when people look at rankings. How did they drop 8 spots or 10 spots? We have very few data points at this point in the season. Dropping 10 spots or completely out of the rankings, which Michigan State did, which I thought was a tad severe, honestly, dropping from 11th to nothing. Again, dropping that number of spots. I still think Michigan State is perhaps one of the top 25 teams in the country. They're ranked very low in my rankings, but I have them there. We'll see, against Minnesota this week. That'll be the final say in the matter, really. But watching when teams, fluctuate up or down, week 3 or happening week 8 in the season are completely different.
Yes.
Week 8, we have a lot of data to look at and say, oh, okay, man, they really just had a really rough game, road trip at night, very tough. I think they're better than that. And you have, information to back that up. Week 2, I have nothing. I didn't have Oregon ranked before this week.
Yeah.
The data after 2 weeks said you're not remotely a top 25 team. Now you beat Baylor and you beat them handily.
Yep.
Not Baylor, I'm sorry, BYU.
Yep.
Okay, now I need to reconsider and reevaluate. Okay, they basically are on a road game across the country against the number 1 team. Perhaps they are actually much better than that game showed. So there's going to be wild fluctuations here. I thought A&M's offense, the only reason it looked a tad better is because there's no turnovers. And Max Johnson knows how to distribute the ball, but there's no creativity in play calling. That team's still really bad.
Yeah.
Mario Cristobal, get away from the offense. Stop. I don't think he's calling plays, but he's clearly making the decisions where to kick field goals, when to punt. Like, it'll be 3rd and 5, and it's like a run up the middle. Like, let Van Dyke go for it, man. The offense is way worse than last season if you're Miami. It's incredibly infuriating. It looks like he's doing to Van Dyke what he did to Justin Herbert in Oregon, where you have this and I'm not saying Van Dyke is Justin Herbert, don't hear that, but you have this very talented quarterback who's shown his skills at times and has these flashes of brilliance, and you're holding him back. You're reining him in. He's going to make some mistakes. Look at what happened in the NFL, though. 2 of the top quarterbacks who made the Super Bowl last year had 2 of the highest amounts of picks thrown. You have to live with some turnovers and some mistakes so that your offense can actually achieve anything.
Yeah.
And that's just a bit of a trade-off. Miami is a great defense. Lean on them. Take a few more risks on offense. Yeah. I'm sure the Hurricane fans had to be incredibly frustrated watching that game where A&M's defense is talented. I thought Miami's offense coach scared in College Station. So, I think they're both okay. I don't think either team is that good, though.
Yeah, I don't either. I think part of it's easy to take that away when the game itself was just kind of gross, like just ugly.
It was terrible. It was
not
terrible
very
game.
exciting. I mean, just kind of a bad game, and I rarely say that about college football. But look, good for Texas A&M. That was an absolute must-have victory. We'll see what Miami does the rest of the year. I don't know. I mean, A&M big game against Arkansas. We'll talk about that. But you talked about Oregon. Yeah. Oregon travels to Washington State, and look, I'd be tempted to take the Cougars. But Johnny, do you know what time this game starts?
What time?
It starts at 4:00. That's not Pac-12 after dark. So this will be a normal game. Oregon's going to win this. They're going to keep that momentum going. If this was at dark in Pullman, I'm taking the Cougars. It is not. It is in the daytime. Give me Oregon.
I think Oregon wins too. What gives me pause is the Bo Nix yo-yo effect.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
of,
fair.
oh, he's brilliant. He's the worst quarterback I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Wow, I've never seen that before. That's a devastating turnover. There's not really an average with that kid. So, I would love to see him succeed. It was great to see him have such a great game against BYU. He was outstanding.
Yeah.
And so for his sake, I hope the yo-yoing stops. I hope that Georgia game is recovered from, completely flushed out of his mind. He doesn't have to fear or worry about those Bulldogs hurting him anymore. So let's hope that's just the team he can't deal with,
Right.
and that he can continue moving forward. Washington State has that great win over Wisconsin, but if you watch that game, Wisconsin lost that game 5 different times and had chances to win. All credit to the Cougars. I do have the Ducks winning. They just have a little bit more talent at this point. Dan Lanning, I think, has got his feet under him now. We thought he could be a good coach coming into the season. Let's go with the Ducks. Let's go with the Ducks. Hesitant, but let's go with the Ducks.
Sounds good. All right, that Arkansas-Texas A&M matchup. Again, it's in Jerry World. A&M coming off of a good win, needed win against Miami. Arkansas coming off of a scare against Missouri State, where quite frankly the Bears looked like they were the better team for the vast majority of that game. I know it was probably weird because you had the return of Bobby Petrino, so just kind of weird circumstances. But again, we're talking about an FCS school that's going to Arkansas and really hanging with them and leading for much of that game. It's the same question you asked earlier. Was it just Arkansas looking ahead to this game against Texas A&M? Maybe. I'm taking the Aggies in a bit of a surprise. I know Arkansas. This was a game that kind of, yeah, I am, because what I came back to is, despite how just horrific that offense is sometimes for the Aggies, how unoriginal it is, there's 2 things that remain true. Number 1, that Aggies defense is legit. They're very good. Number 2, Devin Achane is the best player on the field. And yes, that includes KJ Jefferson. At the end of the day, he's taken this Aggie team and put them on his back. He's basically 99% of the offense, which I will admit is scary.
He is.
But I'm gonna say the Aggies overcome all of this negative attention that they brought on themselves by losing to App State. I'm going to say they win this game. Will it be high on my confidence picks? Absolutely not. But what I saw from Arkansas scared me a little bit. The defense has not been quite what I thought it was going to be for the Razorbacks. And I think that's, at the end of the day, what's going to be the difference in this game. Do I expect A&M to put up a lot of points? No, but I think 24 points does the trick in this game.
Wow. Really different in different places here. I think A&M is just not good. I don't think A&M is a very good football. And there's no excuse for that. Because while the number 1 recruiting class is freshmen, you've had top 10 recruiting classes leading up to this year.
Correct.
Where are your playmakers outside of Achane? And
many of them were suspended last week, to be fair. But no, I'm with you. No
they
excuses.
Didn't show up against App State.
Yeah.
They didn't show up against Sam Houston State. Where are they? Max Johnson is a distributor. You saw him even, LSU had a brutal year last year, and he's still throwing 300 yards out there and throwing the ball around and can find some people. Where are they, A&M? And I think that's scheme. I think that's coaching, because clearly they have the talent somewhere over there. You couldn't have whiffed on that many 4 or 5 3-star players. So I do have Arkansas behind Sanders and Jefferson. I think they're just dynamic enough. They're going to find ways through that defense. I think the defense is going to be on the field too long, much like the App State game. I think if Arkansas is able to, run that ball with any success, they're going to dominate time of possession. They're going to wear them out, just like the Mountaineers did. And A&M, if their offense isn't on the field much at all, they won't find a rhythm, just like those games. So I expect Arkansas to win this game. That running attack is fantastic. The defense is a huge concern going forward. I just don't think it bites them in this game.
Okay. Nice. Well, I'm excited to see how this week's games go, just partially now because we disagree on some picks. All right. Next, Kansas State travels to Oklahoma. And this is this is the same question. Was Kansas State looking ahead to Oklahoma, but they lost to Tulane and they only put up 10 points. And I think that's what just gets me. I know Kansas State has had all kinds of success against Oklahoma, but it's actually one of the reasons why the Sooners might be my top confidence pick because there's no way the Sooners overlook. You wouldn't think. You would hope. There's no way Oklahoma overlooks Kansas State again because there's plenty of players on this team that have seen the wrath of Kansas State. I don't think they let that happen at home. I've been very impressed with Oklahoma. They just took Nebraska to the woodshed last week. There was never a doubt outside of that first opening touchdown that the Cornhuskers scored. There was never a doubt in this game. Dylan Gabriel is doing exactly what I thought he could under Levy's offense again. It's great to see that reunion, and the defense has been a little bit better too under Venables, which just by nature of him being in the building, you would think it would be, and it has been, and I think that's the story again. I think Kansas State struggles on offense again, even with Deuce Vaughn. Give me the Sooners, who look like they're trending in the right direction of actually getting to the playoff. I know there's plenty of, they haven't played really any of their significant games so far, but I've been, and against inferior opponents for the most part, but I've been very impressed with Oklahoma.
Yeah, all the reasons you said, completely agree with. Talk about offense being a one-man show. Deuce Vaughn with Kansas State, and Tulane knew that, and there's no way Kansas State could have been looking ahead to Oklahoma. Those helmets, they had to be just psyched up for that game. So Tulane's just better. They beat them head to head. So Oklahoma, this would have been a far more interesting game if they had survived that.
Yes.
But Kansas State losing the best helmet matchup of the season game, and it's just about over. Oklahoma, very impressed with how well-rounded the team has looked through 3 weeks.
Yes. All right. Oklahoma's former coach off to USC, where the Trojans are 3-0, and they face their toughest test yet. They go to Corvallis and the 3-0 Oregon State Beavers. And I think everybody is overlooking the Beavers. Everybody is overlooking what Jonathan Smith has done at this program. It's something special. They're 3-0. They've looked really good. I know we've kind of both taken in different games. I watched most of their Boise State game. I believe you watched most of their Fresno State game. So I'm high on the Beavers. I do think the Trojans find a way, but do not be surprised if the Beavers have a lead at halftime. They're threatening in the third, fourth quarters. I think the Trojans could, and I've been very impressed with USC too. There's been plenty of chances for the Trojans to kind of slip up. They have not. They've handled their business. But this is a different monster. This is a 9:30 p.m. Eastern time kick. Give me USC, but I'm not going to have it as high in the confidence as some people might have because Oregon State's the real deal.
That 9:30 kick in Corvallis, just it's a tasty matchup, and I feel like they knew it coming into the season. And talk about overlooking. I mean, I have Oregon State ranked 25th.
I love it,
in
as
my
you
poll
should.
this week. So they've looked great. They have guts. I know you'll cross-examine. They both played Fresno State. Oregon State had to win on the last play of the game. Haener, Fresno State's quarterback, did get knocked out in the first half. Was it the first half or early second half against USC? It's a completely different ball game.
Yeah.
With him in there, USC still wins, but it's not an equivalent. So don't get misled by the final scores in those games. It's not quite the same. Oregon State is building. I don't think they're quite there yet, but it's Lincoln Riley's first year at USC too. He might not be as aware of the Beavers as he should yet. So I'll be cheering for you, Oregon State, but I don't think so. Not this year.
Yeah.
Maybe soon.
I do think 9-3 is in the cards, which is a pretty high mark for Oregon State, and that's awesome. So one of the games last week we picked, and we picked it with pretty significant confidence, was App State and Troy. With game day at Boone, it was an awesome scene, and it turns out that wasn't even the best scene of the day because App State got an insane Hail Mary. Troy had a 99% chance to win that game by all of the fancy metrics, and it was App State pulling out a crazy Hail Mary. Bryce is literally helping fans out of the stands to rush the field. It was just amazing. But I think on this show, we need to start a petition. Look, I know, Duke, you're 3-0. But we need to sacrifice you to the Sun Belt or somewhere else because App State needs to belong in the ACC. We need to find a way to get them into a major conference. They scheduled Clemson for 2024, so we'll talk to you then about their latest and greatest upset. But a shout out, I just want to give a shout out, just generally speaking, to App State. The Mountaineers found a way to get it done, 2-1. Pretty crazy. And Marshall, who was the other darling from week 2, found a way to lose to Bowling Green, who again lost to Eastern Kentucky in 7 overtimes. So college football continues to stay wacky. All right, Jonny, you have been 6-6-1 so far with your best bets, and you've got some best bets for us again this week with your Monopoly money.
Quick overview for last week. Went 2-3, not a great week, not terrible. Really disappointed on the Friday night game, Air Force and Wyoming. Not only did Air Force not cover the 17, they lost to Wyoming in Laramie by 3. So, that was tough. Very sad for the Air Force bandwagon early this year. They'd been dominating. Very surprising. Oklahoma easily covered against Nebraska. They were 11.5-point favorites, win by 35. That game was never close. Coastal Carolina breaks my heart. 14-point favorites. They win by 12, just coming up short. BYU, this was easily my most wrong pick of the day. I was just killing Oregon after that Georgia performance. They looked uninterested. They were fighting amongst themselves in that game. They looked lost and confused. They've righted the ship. BYU was a 3.5-point dog. I picked them to win outright. Clearly wrong. Oregon wins by 21. And then this was what I felt like was my most risky pick of the day. Wisconsin, 37.5-point favorite over New Mexico State. They win by 59 and easily cover against the Aggies in that one. So maybe lesson learned. Break my rule one time with the big spreads, and absolutely right. So this week, though, actually, most of my picks are ones that we've mentioned, which is kind of rare and kind of strange. But the first one's not. It's number 14. Penn State is playing Central Michigan. The Chippewas are not very good this year. Penn State's a 26-point favorite. I know that seems like a lot. Big Ten favorite with a big spread at home against a poor Group of 5 opponent. And Penn State really seems to have figured it out with Singleton there in the running attack. And that frees everything up for Sean Clifford.
Really good. He is really good.
And then that allows a veteran quarterback to be able to sit back there on play action, take some shots, have cleaner pockets, slowing down those edge rushers coming after him. I think Penn State covers against Central Michigan. 26-point spread. I think that happens, even if they only win by 30. Then this is my riskiest pick of the day, I believe. I have Arkansas, who's a 2.5-point dog against Texas A&M, winning outright. It'd be hard to win by a point, really, but winning outright at that neutral site in Dallas over number 20 A&M. So I do have the Razorbacks winning that game.
Real quick on that Penn State game, by the way, just a stat I stumbled across. You want to know how many carries Nick Singleton has so far this season? Just take a guess. I'm curious.
50.
He has 30 for 334 yards. He's averaging. That surprised me too. 11.1 average per carry, 4 touchdowns, 2 against Ohio, 2 against Auburn. He had 10 carries, 124 yards against Auburn. So if they feed him the rock more, which you think that, I mean, I know they're kind of easing their true freshman in, but this guy is legit. I mean, if Penn State goes on a run this year, and they very well might. Wow, let me try to speak again. They very well might. There we go. I got it out. I mean, is it crazy to think that Singleton won't crack like the top 5 of the Heisman at some point if Penn State rattles off a bunch of wins? It's not.
He's a dark horse. He's on the list.
He's really good. Clifford, and it's perfect. He's a perfect complement to go with Sean Clifford, who just, again, exhibits his toughness and his leadership. He may not be the best quarterback, but dang it, man, he's a winner. I can't say anything other than that. So, sorry, back to you, but I did want to make that note about Nick Singleton. He's a tremendous talent.
That's great. Yeah, he's definitely a dark horse that's sitting there. You have to see a little bit more from Penn State on a bigger stage. You would have thought the Auburn game would have been a big stage, but that's just not a very good Tiger team this year. But still, that will be a standout performance that people look back to if they're able to handle their business later on this season. Next game might be a little bit of a surprise. Rutgers is home hosting Iowa. We love the Hawkeyes on this show. We love talking about them, so I had to fit them in here. I don't know if Rutgers wins, but they're a 7.5-point dog. They cover at home against Iowa. That's a lot of points. Rutgers is 3-0. I think the Scarlet Knights find a way to at least cover against Iowa. I think that'll be a really tight game. I
Wow.
still don't think Iowa's figured out the offense. So I
Yeah.
just think it'll be close. Maybe Iowa wins by 6, but that'll still be a cover.
That's
So
brave of you to bet
my
that
take
game.
on that one.
I'll say that. I wouldn't touch that game if it were me, but good for you.
It is. And then next, I have 2 that we've already talked about. They're competitive games. They're pick'em games. They're ones that you're like, why are you touching these? Kansas, 9-point favorites at home against Duke. They're going to be juiced, man. I don't think it's too bright of a spotlight. Kansas strings. I think they're hyped. They're ready to go. They're clearly prepared and ready to take on that Houston team last week. I think, Aaron, you mentioned either on this show or in the podcast, Duke hasn't played anybody.
Yeah.
Kansas is going to cover that 9-point spread at home.
Agreed.
I think that actually could be a rout. Speaking of another potential rout, number 11, Tennessee, 11-point home favorite. They're going to cover against Florida as well. Now, Florida's defense is quality. You know, it's an SEC defensive line. There's good players there. Hendon Hooker isn't going to decimate them like he has some of these other teams early in the season. Maybe even Florida's defense keeps it close in the first half. Anthony Richardson's really struggling with his confidence in throwing that ball. Tennessee's been tested this season too already with Pitt and their passing attack. I think they're ready to go. I think this Tennessee team finally might be ready to take the next step and just be a quality, stable program. They're not going to be competing for the playoff this year, guys. Don't hear that. But I think under Heupel, they might be ready to finally have some stability, be a quality program, win a game like this that they haven't really won very many of in the last decade. So I think Tennessee covers 11 points. I know it's a big number. I think it happens.
All right. Well, there we go. Look, if I gave you an Elite 8 come basketball season, we're talking March, okay? I give you Tennessee. I give you Duke, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, Syracuse, UCLA. You'd be like, wow, that's a good Elite 8. You would also be looking at a combined 24-0 in football. So that's pretty remarkable. So the basketball schools showing out. And since Michigan's a basketball school as well, make it 27-0. So anyways, there's my Buckeye roast for the day. Obviously they're not, but all right, well, good. We'll track those bets this week. Best of luck to you. Best of luck to all of you that are trying to save up enough Monopoly money to buy Boardwalk. See if we get the job done this week. So, look, I'm really excited. I think we've got a lot of tremendous matchups. I know there's not a ton of ranked games, depending on which poll you look at. Hopefully, you look at ours and not the AP polls, because that's a joke. But I think I think this is a really, really loaded week full of good matchups. We're getting into the thick of conference play, which is always interesting. I will say one other pick, or maybe just game we want to preview that's not on this list, is Ohio State versus Wisconsin. That's where the ABC crew will be going for Saturday Night Football. I know we're both Buckeye fans, so that all being said, I like Ohio State to win by 20. Wisconsin has lost 6 straight to Ohio State, I believe, and that includes several Big Ten title games. And I would have been a little bit more optimistic about Wisconsin, but that game against Washington State just stunk. And I know they put up 66 against a bad New Mexico State team, but Ohio State put up 77. Does Wisconsin have anybody that can line up next to Marvin Harrison Jr., who now has 5 receiving touchdowns? That's tied for the lead in college football. I don't think they do. Will Ohio State be able to stop the run? Braylon Allen is kind of the only guy. We talked about Deuce Vaughn being all of Kansas State's offense. Braylon Allen's kind of the same thing for Wisconsin, and I think Ohio State will be able to single in and take him, or at least limit his output, which they've done in the past to other Wisconsin running backs. So I'm expecting something similar here.
If you're an Ohio State fan, you should actually be really excited because the run defense is going to get a real test, and their first test of the season, truly, from a very run-dominant team. Secondary's already been tested. There's been some chinks in the armor clearly early on. Toledo's quarterback actually looked quite capable in last week's game. There's been times in the first 3 weeks that the passing attack has found some holes in the OSU defense. It'll be great to watch the linebacker core, the defensive tackles, stand up against Braylon Allen there for sure. Offensively, Jim Leonard usually has some tricks up his sleeve for Ohio State. So while everything you said is true, Aaron, it'll be interesting. I'm interested to see how CJ Stroud processes. He's probably not going to be able to go off his number one guy most of the time in this game. So how does he process and go through, first, second, third progressions, and how quickly can he do that? The offensive line hasn't been tested that much this season either. I think that will change in this game. So I'm not really worried necessarily about the wide receivers as much as I'd like to see, and I'm sure NFL scouts would like to see, CJ Stroud go through his reads, go through his progressions, be that floor general at the line of scrimmage, and notice the different coverages that Leonard throws out, who, if Wisconsin's season does fall off the rails, that could be the next Badger head coach lying in wait right there on staff. So I don't think the game's necessarily at risk. Wisconsin's a quality team who has what it takes to beat Ohio State, I guess I would say, or at least challenge them. I don't think that happens. But there are definitely some great things that are interesting in this game that you should stop by, at least at this game, to check in on and see, especially if you're an NFL fan and you want to get a look at CJ Stroud. This is your first real game, I think, to get to see him do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And a reminder, too, and maybe he looks great in this game, maybe he doesn't, but Braylon Allen is 18 years old. This guy is a sensational talent.
He's great.
He's really
no matter
good.
What happens.
There's a couple, you're talking about some good running backs in the Big Ten. Look no farther than Nick Singleton and Braylon Allen. And probably throw TreVeyon Henderson in that lineup, too. He's got to stay a little bit healthier for Ohio State. That'll be an interesting factor for Ohio State going into that game on Saturday, but should be a lot of fun. Jonny, thanks again for recording this show. It's always good. Make sure you're tuned in to our social media accounts to find out where we're going this week on our college football tour. Should be another good week of college football. Jonny, looking forward to it. As always, any last thoughts?
Don't forget the key matchups of the week for all you sickos out there. UMass at Temple, Hawaii at New Mexico State.
Yep.
Two fantastic games that you probably have to either find in an illegal streaming network, which I'm not advertising that by any means. Don't hear that. But that's the only way to watch it. Somehow that's the only way it's available. Or Hawaii and New Mexico State. So, this is some fantastic games. Hawaii actually is playing at a reasonable time this week. So if you've missed your opportunities to watch the Rainbow Warriors in a winnable matchup, here you go. This is your week. This is your time to shine.
Oh, man. Amazing. All right, Jonny. Thanks for doing this. We'll see you guys next week, the last week of Saturday, September football. How fast that has gone. All right. We'll see you guys next week.